Subscribe to ABN Media Network and become part of our family and learn so many new things.
Novel, Ferris Descendants of Noah. Episode 4, Chapter, The Guide, Writer, Ziad Ashgar Zaroon. A Tale of the Future. Who Am I? By Ferris Ali. Our family got into a land dispute with an influential man. What started as a small argument between our elders and his side slowly turned into a bitter feud. Grandfather filed a case against them in court. One morning, my father, uncle, and grandfather left home to attend a court hearing. They hadn't gone far when the rivals ambushed them. Without warning, they opened fire, riddling their bodies with bullets. A short while later, a villager came to our house, trembling and gasping for breath, to deliver the news. The moment we heard it, our world collapsed. The house filled with cries, grief, and rage. We rushed to the scene, called for a vehicle, and tried to take the wounded to the hospital. At the hospital, we learned that both my father and grandfather had died on the spot. My uncle was still alive, but barely. He was fighting for his life, drifting between this world and the next. That day felt like the end of the world. 2 coffins lay in one house, and a third life hung by a thread in the hospital. Every man and woman in the village had tears in their eyes. Our entire family was drowning in grief. After that tragedy, life lost its color. I broke apart completely. Silence took hold of me. I became bitter, irritable, and withdrawn. My heart turned cold toward everyone, and loneliness became my only refuge. I never thought I'd recover from the weight of that loss. Time kept passing, but I stayed stuck in that darkness. I lost interest in studies. Sitting among people felt unbearable. If anyone tried to laugh or speak kindly, anger would surge inside me. Often, I felt like setting the whole world on fire just so everyone could feel the pain I was living with. When my uncle finally regained consciousness, he gave the names of the attackers to the police, and they were all arrested. But what difference did that make? The dead would not return. The wounds in our hearts would not heal. How could the fire inside us ever cool down? Slowly, the trauma started to consume me. I locked myself away in a room and turned to books in search of peace. I began reading anything I could find, good or bad, as if words themselves were my last refuge. But isolation only made the voices in my head louder. Desperate, I sought advice from an old spiritual man. He listened to me carefully and said, "Perhaps you possess the ability of telepathy." I was startled. When I asked what he meant, he explained, "When we think, our brains create waves that spread through the air. Most people can't sense them, but it seems you can. With specific stages and practice, these waves can be controlled, and it's possible to access the thoughts forming in another person's mind." His words filled me with both curiosity and excitement. The idea of reading others' thoughts fascinated me. I asked him what kind of training was needed. He replied, "Begin with candle gazing." Following his guidance, I started practicing. The next exercise, he said, was to stare at a black circle without blinking. He explained, "When you can bend the flame of a candle with your gaze, and when the black circle begins to fade before your eyes, that's when I'll tell you the third and final exercise." Time passed, and I mastered both techniques with surprising skill. Only the third lesson remained. But before I could learn it, the old man passed away. Although I couldn't master telepathy, those exercises still helped me in another way. They brought order and clarity to my thoughts. Gradually, all my ideas began to revolve around a revolutionary dream, one that I could see clearly in my mind but had no idea how to make real. Our family's financial condition was poor, so I left for Faisalabad in search of work. I worked there for quite some time, and the job was decent, but something inside me kept saying this wasn't my destiny. During that period, I developed a deep attachment to the city of Faisalabad. Without telling anyone, I bought a small house there so I'd always have a place to return to. Later, I rented it out and came back to my village after quitting my job. Life took a new turn when I returned. I married Talal's mother, and not long after, I met Shubdar for the first time. He brought me a strange but joyous message, that God would soon bless me with a son, and that the child's name should be Ferris. With Shubdar's guidance and help, I built a hidden underground chamber away from the village. Life seemed to be moving toward stability again, but happiness never stayed long. Soon after, the Battle of Hind erupted, and the country's condition deteriorated sharply. Around the same time, Talal's mother fell gravely ill and passed away, leaving me broken and alone. At my mother's urging, I eventually decided to remarry. Soon after, I married Ayesha, and God blessed us with a beautiful son, Ferris. That little life brought light back into the darkness. I have written down my thoughts and instructions in this diary so that when you read them, you will understand. Ferris, if you're reading this, remember, your path continues from where mine ends. You must carry forward the mission I began. These goals are greater than my life itself. I spent years working with Shugdar. Many secrets are still hidden from you, but they will be revealed in time. Work alongside Shugdar. From him, you will gain the experience and knowledge you'll need. The journey will be yours, but the destination is the fulfillment of my purpose. I've seen nothing but pain in my life, yet I never gave up. I made great sacrifices for my mission, and I can't allow them to fade into dust. Remember this, if you betray my purpose out of carelessness, soon you'll find my hand at your collar. Safwan watched Ferris in silence for a long time. Ferris sat motionless, lost deep in thought. Hey, where did you go? I asked you something, Safwan said. Ferris blinked, startled. What did you say? Safwan's voice snapped him back to reality. In a daze, Ferris touched his collar as if making sure it was still his own. For a fleeting second, it had felt like his father, Ferris Ali, was standing right in front of him, grabbing his collar and revealing all his secrets. I was saying, Safwan reminded him, you were telling me about your father. Ferris's lips trembled, his throat felt dry. The diary's words looked ordinary, but beneath them, a heavy secret stirred, filling him with unease. He was trying to make sense of it all but found himself sinking deeper into confusion. Can I get some water? He asked, licking his dry lips. Safwan studied him quietly, then walked to the fridge. He poured cold water into a glass and handed it to Ferris. Ferris drank it in one breath and returned the empty glass. Safwan placed it on the side table and began pacing the room. The soft sound of his footsteps echoed in the silence. His eyes held no trace of sympathy, only sharp focus. He wasn't comforting Ferris, he was probing him, determined to reach the truth at any cost. Suddenly, a strange figure appeared right before Safwan's eyes. The moment was so abrupt that he froze, every hair on his body standing on end. He jumped back, 2 steps, instantly shifting into a defensive stance and shouting in fear. Who are you? The stranger's calm smile contrasted sharply with Safwan's panic. It was Shugdar. He stood there, his gaze fixed on Ferris. Ferris lay with his eyes closed, but Safwan's voice jolted him awake. When he opened his eyes, Shugdar was right there in the room. For a moment, it seemed that if Ferris hadn't spoken, Safwan would have attacked. Safwan, stop, don't do anything stupid, Ferris shouted quickly. Safwan's glare stayed locked on Shugdar as he held his stance. Who is he, and how did he just appear here? He demanded. Shugdar smiled faintly and replied, I'm Shugdar, your friend. And as for how I got here, I came the same way you did. His mysterious tone only deepened Safwan's confusion, but strangely, his anger and fear began to fade, replaced by a quiet, uneasy calm. Oh, so it was you who brought me here, Safwan said with relief, finally exhaling the tension he'd been holding in. At his words, Shugdar's sharp gaze turned toward Ferris, filled with doubt and mild irritation. His tone carried both surprise and reproach. Ferris, if I wanted to tell him something, I would have done it myself. Did you tell him everything about me? No, I only told him that we came here through teleportation. I swear, I didn't even mention your name. He just guessed it from the way you appeared, Ferris explained quickly, his face innocent and honest. Shugdar stared at him for a moment, then his expression softened. His voice, calm but weighty, broke the silence. All right, no matter. I was going to tell him everything soon anyway. But remember this, Ferris, whatever you're told must stay buried in your heart. Caution is everything. He placed a heavy bag on the table and sat on the chair beside Ferris. Ferris said nothing, lost in thought. Safwan's eyes, however, were fixed on the bag. Curiosity was written all over his face. He couldn't help but ask, "What's inside the bag?" Shukdar looked up at him, his expression unreadable. "It contains the cure for your wounds," he said calmly. "Both of you, now come closer and sit down. I'm here to heal you." Safwan hesitated for a moment, then pulled up a chair and sat beside them. His mind was still a storm of questions. After a pause, he finally asked, "Tell me something, are you from another world? Like, from space?" Shukdar gave a small smile and shook his head. "No, I'm human, just like you. The difference is only in appearance. Just as Europeans, Asians, Arabs, Mongols, Turks, and Africans all look different, so do we. You've simply never seen anyone like me before, so my face seems strange to you." With that, he turned his attention back to the bag and began to search through it. After a few moments, he took out a small container filled with a thick green liquid. Handing it to Safwan, he said, "Remove the bandage from Ferris's wound. Mix this solution with water and clean the wound thoroughly." Safwan silently took the small jar and began unwrapping the bandage. Ferris, meanwhile, was lost in his thoughts, still caught between the diary and his father's words. Suddenly, Safwan tugged a knot loose a little too roughly, and Ferris winced in pain. "Ah, man, be gentle. I was thinking about something. I'm not dead that you have to torture me like this." Safwan bit back a laugh and said, still smiling, all right, I'll go easy. But at least pay some attention here, will you?" Ferris frowned. "I'll pay full attention now. Otherwise, you'll turn my leg into a disaster." Safwan chuckled and carefully continued removing the last layers of the bandage, which had stuck to the wound. During this, Shukdar had already taken several instruments and vials out of the bag. When he saw the dried, blood-stained patches on the wound, he gave calm instructions. Before removing those layers, pour a little of this chemical over them. Safwan quickly mixed the clear liquid with some water to make a solution, then gently poured it over the bandaged area. As the cloth softened, he slowly peeled it off, revealing the wound beneath. It had been stitched with a special type of thread. Safwan used cotton to clean the area thoroughly with the green mixture. "Now, remove the stitches," Shukdar said evenly, picking up two metallic rings from the table. Safwan froze for a moment, startled. "What? The wound's still fresh. If I cut the stitches now, it'll start bleeding badly." Shukdar's tone was calm but firm. "Do as I say. It's necessary for the healing process." Safwan sighed, muttering under his breath, "Fine, but don't blame me when there's blood everywhere." He picked up the small surgical tool and began cutting the stitches one by one. Shukdar stood silently beside him, watching every movement closely. Ferris's face twisted in pain. Despite the cool air from the AC, sweat shimmered on his forehead. He clenched his jaw, doing his best not to cry out. When the last stitch came off, blood began to flow freely. Immediately, Shukdar stepped forward. He placed the two circular rings on either side of the wound and slid a thick titanium plate underneath. The rings attached to it with a metallic click. Within moments, Ferris felt a strange sensation, as if countless tiny needles were piercing through his skin. A tingling current ran through his leg, spreading like thousands of ants crawling inside his flesh. The pain was so intense that tears slipped from Ferris's eyes, but he held himself together. The agony lasted only a few moments. Then Shukdar calmly removed the rings and gently applied a fragrant ointment to the wound. "You must not cover this wound now," Shukdar said confidently. "In half an hour, it will be completely healed." Safwan looked at the rings in amazement. "What kind of method is this? How can a wound heal so quickly?" "Think of them as a special kind of bacteria," Shukdar explained. "We discovered them 30 years ago, dormant inside molten lava. The strange thing is, they exist at the same temperature as the lava itself. If I hadn't applied the ointment in time, those bacteria would have burned away a large part of Ferris's leg." Finishing his words, Shukdar turned to Safwan. "Now forget these details. Show me your wound. Once I treat it, I'll take my leave." He took hold of Safwan's arm and began unwrapping his bandage. Meanwhile, far away, the veiled woman brushed away the thin layer of soil covering a grave. Within seconds, the dirt was cleared, and the coffin beneath became visible. With calm precision, she removed the lid. Inside lay decayed bones. She didn't hesitate. With a flick of her foot, she pushed the skull and ribcage aside, then reached for the lower panel of the coffin and pulled it sharply. It creaked open like a hidden door, revealing a narrow staircase descending into darkness. She stepped down quietly, closed the coffin and the hidden hatch above her, and continued downward. Soon her feet touched uneven ground. Despite the darkness, she could see clearly. Her eyes were covered with night vision lenses. Ahead of her stretched 3 separate tunnels. She chose the one on the left and walked briskly forward. A few turns later, 2 more passages appeared, one to the right and one to the left. Without hesitation, she turned right. Through a maze of dim corridors, she finally reached a solid wall. Each passage here had decoy routes alongside the real one, all laced with deadly traps. This underground network was not designed for intruders to find their way out alive. She placed her hand on the cold stone wall and held it there for a few seconds. Suddenly, a mechanical voice echoed from within the wall. "Who is this?" Without the slightest pause, her gaze fixed straight ahead, she answered evenly. "This is Who." There was a brief silence. Then the voice responded, "Welcome, Miss Who." At once, the wall began to sink silently into the floor like a shadow dissolving into darkness. She stepped forward calmly, passing through to the other side. A few paces ahead stood another wall. Between the 2 walls rested a stone chair. Without hesitation, she sat down. On the arm of the chair was a carved emblem. She placed her ring over the mark. Instantly, a hidden power stirred within the chair, a gravitational force that locked her firmly in place. The wall ahead rose again, sealing the passage completely. The floor beneath her trembled softly, as if restraining some immense energy. Then, with a faint jolt, it began to descend. It was a secret elevator, driven by an advanced gravitational system. Within seconds, its speed increased dramatically, carrying her downward at several miles per second. In less than a minute, the lift came to a smooth stop. Before her stood a transparent glass door. As soon as she was released from the chair's grip, she stood and approached. The door slid open without a sound. Beyond it spread a vast underground laboratory. On one side, rows of computer systems glowed under the light, each manned by young men and women capable of hacking networks around the world. On the other side were biological research stations, and beyond them, dozens of specialized labs, each guarding its own secret discoveries. She walked calmly through the wide hall toward her office. Every person she passed bowed slightly and greeted respectfully, "Welcome, ma'am." But she paid no attention. The moment she entered her office, the atmosphere changed completely. The office looked like a scene from another world. When one looked up, it felt as if a vast blue sky stretched endlessly above. The 4 walls projected the moving image of an ocean, with waves crashing softly in the depths, creating a soothing whisper. The floor was made entirely of glass, beneath which clear water flowed. Colorful fish swam gracefully below, making it seem as though the furniture itself was floating over the sea. She sat down in her usual seat, gazed thoughtfully at the enchanting view for a few seconds, then picked up the phone and spoke in a calm tone. "Mr. Jarrus, come to my office immediately." After ending the call, she stood up and smiled faintly as she looked down at the fish gliding beneath the glass floor. For a brief moment, the line between dream and reality seemed to blur. After treating Ferris and Safwan's wounds, Shukdar had left. The room now carried a quiet sense of relief. The 2 were chatting casually, light laughter returning to the space. Shukdar had shared several important details with Safwan, who now seemed much more at ease. Deep down, he was certain that if they had been brought together, it was for a powerful reason and a purpose yet to be revealed. Safwan was not the kind of man to ask direct questions, but he could never remain unaware of hidden truths either. Still, this time was different. Something about this situation felt unfamiliar and beyond comprehension. He decided to let time uncover the secret. After all, no secret remains hidden forever. Their wounds still throbbed faintly, but the pain was slowly fading. Ferris could now move his injured leg a little. They were still talking when they suddenly heard soft footsteps outside. The air in the room grew still. Ferris quickly covered his leg with a sheet, his full attention fixed on the sound. A moment later, Talal entered, carrying a tray of food. His face bore a calm, pleasant smile. As he stepped in, he greeted warmly. "Assalamu alaikum, how are you, young men?" Safwan immediately sat up straight, while Ferris pushed himself up from a reclining position. "Wa alaikum assalam, by God's grace, we're fine. You really didn't have to trouble yourself so much," Ferris said politely, though his hungry eyes betrayed him. Deep down, he wanted to snatch the tray from Talal's hands that very instant. Talal smiled gently. "This isn't trouble, it's my duty. I knew both of you must be starving," he said softly. "Eat first, we'll talk afterward." He placed the tray carefully on the table. Safwan pulled up a chair without hesitation and sat beside Ferris. Both immediately began eating, unable to resist their hunger. Talal watched them for a few moments, then lowered his gaze. There was a strange unease in his eyes, as if a shadow of worry flickered within. Quietly, he sat down on a nearby chair. Ferris took a few bites, then looked up at him. Talal seemed lost in thought, like a man searching for light in a tunnel of darkness. His face carried a mix of confusion, sadness, and the burden of something unspoken. Ferris kept glancing at him in silence. After a few moments, he couldn't hold back anymore and finally asked. "What's wrong, Talal Bhai? You seem worried." There was genuine concern in his tone. Safwan, too, turned to look at Talal, quickly noticing the same tension on his face. "It's nothing, just eat your food," Talal said curtly, his tone cold and final, as if closing the door to further questions. "But you really do look troubled," Ferris pressed gently. "There's definitely something bothering you inside." Talal sighed deeply, his expression tightening with frustration. "I said, eat, it's my personal matter." The sharpness in his tone silenced the room. Ferris shrugged quietly and went back to his food. After a few moments, Safwan spoke softly. "Talal Bhai, I know it's not my place to interfere, but don't take it the wrong way. Sometimes, what two brothers share is stronger than what four friends can understand. You and Ferris shouldn't keep things from each other." Talal lifted his head and glanced briefly at Safwan, his eyes showing faint irritation, yet that same confusion still lingered within them. Safwan continued gently. "All right, as you wish," Safwan said quietly. "I only meant that if this problem concerns both of you, keeping it to yourself could one day create distance between you. Whatever it is, he has the same right to know as you do." With that, he went back to his food. Only the soft clinking of cutlery broke the silence now. A faint heaviness filled the room, as if even the air was waiting for a secret to be spoken. Talal sat still in his chair, but his unease was clear. His eyes shifted between the floor and the ceiling, unfocused. Confusion clouded his face, and the weight of something painful lingered in his chest. The silence stretched for several long moments before he finally spoke, slowly, like someone forcing the words out. "This morning, Mother suddenly fell very ill." The piece of bread in Ferris's hand froze midair. The bite he was about to swallow stuck in his throat like a stone. His face went pale. What happened to Mama?" His voice trembled, full of fear and dread. Talal took a deep breath, but the words wouldn't leave his lips easily. "I took her to Dr. Furtis, he said that." He stopped, unable to continue. Ferris's heartbeat quickened. "Said what? Why are you talking in riddles?" His voice shook with anxiety. Tears welled up in Talal's eyes. He looked down, then finally whispered. He said, "Mama has blood cancer." The world around Ferris went silent. For a moment, every sound faded, only the pounding of his own heart echoed in his ears. He lowered his gaze, but tears rolled freely down his cheeks. "There must be treatment, right? What did drive Furtis say?" His voice quivered as he spoke. Talal slowly lifted his head, his eyes glistening. In front of her, the doctor tried to reassure us, but a while ago, he called again. He said the disease has spread. The cancer has reached her bones. He paused, his voice breaking. I'm taking her to the hospital in the morning. She needs a blood transfusion. A single tear escaped from his eye, sliding down his cheek. The room was silent again, only that tear seemed to speak. Mama will get better, won't she, Talal Bhai? Ferris's voice cracked. His hands were trembling, his face drained of color. He had already lost so much in life. The image of his father's death still haunted him, vivid and fresh, and now this news felt like a final blow. He couldn't bear another loss, especially not his mother. Doctor, Fergus said we should be ready, for anything, Talal said softly. He moved closer and sat beside Ferris, placing a gentle hand on his shoulder. Be strong, everything will be alright. But how could Ferris be strong? His entire world revolved around one person, his mother. She was the reason he was still standing. And now that anchor was slipping away, he had no words left. Only silence, and a scream buried deep inside. Tears streamed down his face as he tilted his head back, staring helplessly at the ceiling, as if trying to swallow his pain. When his gaze finally met Talal's, the sight broke him completely. Ferris's eyes were red, his face etched with anguish. Talal's own eyes filled again. He cupped Ferris's face in both hands and said softly, Ferris, my child, my brother, don't lose heart. I'm hurting too, just like you. But hope isn't gone yet. If we lose our strength now, how will we face the storm ahead? He was trying to comfort him, but inside he was falling apart. No elder brother to share his burden with, no father whose shoulder he could cry on. He had learned to live again through the smiles of Ayesha and Paris. But now, he could feel himself breaking. Paris lowered his eyes, pressed his lips together, and nodded slowly. Talal pulled him into his arms. And that was it, the last wall of restraint finally broke. Bye, please, nothing should happen to Mama, I can't. Paris's voice cracked, and the next moment he buried his face in Talal's chest, sobbing uncontrollably. The room echoed with one sound only, the trembling cries of a son terrified of losing his mother. Paris, what is this? Don't act like a child. Talal's tone was firm, but beneath it was love and concern. Nothing will happen, everything will be fine, be strong, even Mama is braver than this. Pull yourself together, don't cry like that, stand with me like a man so we can face this together. Even if we have to go to the other end of the world, we will, but we will get her treated. The conviction in his voice filled the still air. His eyes were wet, but behind them was unshaken strength. He could feel Paris's pain, but he wouldn't let it destroy him. Safwan quietly moved closer and sat beside Paris. He placed a firm hand on his shoulder, a silent gesture of support. Paris, he said softly but with resolve. The boy who once risked his life to save me in that horrific moment, he can't be this weak. Don't do this again, I'm a doctor myself, I'll go with you in the morning. We'll find some way. He paused, took a deep breath, and added. My brother, my parents, they all left me. But I've never seen anyone break like you're breaking now. Your mother is alive, and as long as there's life, there's hope. Paris slowly raised his head. His eyes were still wet, but now there was a spark in them, a glimmer of determination. He wiped his tears with his sleeve, took a deep breath, and said firmly. All right, bye, you go, take Mama to the doctor in the morning. Safwan and I will come straight there. For the first time, a faint smile appeared on both Talal and Safwan's faces. It felt like a soft ray of hope had entered the dark room. Okay, I'll go home. Don't worry, everything will be fine, inshallah. Talal stood up gently and placed a hand on Paris's cheek. In that touch was the care of a brother, the comfort of a father, and the loyalty of a friend, all at once. Take care of yourself, Paris said quietly, his tone calm but heavy. Talal rested his hand softly on his shoulder, then slowly stood up. Turning to Safwan, he said, I had many questions for you, but maybe this isn't the right time. I'll talk to you soon. Safwan looked back steadily and replied, you have every right to. Talal gave them both a long, deep look before walking toward the door. He paused for a moment, then quietly stepped out. The room fell completely silent. After a pause, Paris hesitantly looked at Safwan and asked softly. Are you really a doctor? And, can you help my mama? A faint but meaningful smile appeared on Safwan's face. He took a deep breath and said quietly. Yes, I'm a doctor, but maybe calling me a mad scientist would be more accurate. I've created human masks, by merging organic cells with synthetic materials. With them, a person's entire face can be changed. He paused, then added gently. I can't tell you everything right now, but know this, I've done extensive research on cancer. I'll do everything I can, the rest is in God's hands. There was something strange in Safwan's tone, a mix of confidence and sorrow. It felt as if he believed in his abilities, yet deep down knew that the final decision rested only with the one above. Somewhere deep in a dark wilderness, a terrified girl was running, gasping, screaming. Her cries echoed through the desolate woods, but there was no answer, only silence. Behind her, a monstrous, inhuman figure crawled and leapt like a wild beast, chasing her through the night. Its movements were more animal than human. The girl kept glancing back, her body trembling harder each time the beast drew closer. Her steps faltered. The creature chasing her looked human, but his movements were more like a wolf, wild, unrestrained, hungry for blood. His tangled hair was matted with filth, and his sharp teeth still dripped with the fresh, warm blood of the girl's lover. Terror had drained all life from her face. Her screams caught in her throat as she cried for help, but there was no one, nothing but the echo of her own panic in the empty wilderness. Then suddenly, she collided with something solid and fell hard to the ground. Her breathing was ragged, her eyes wide with horror. She looked up, and froze. A striking man stood before her. His long black hair was perfectly combed, his clothes elegant, almost royal in style. He stepped forward, pulled a pistol from his pocket, and without hesitation fired. A loud shot cracked through the air. The bullet tore through the creature's shoulder, splattering blood across the trees. The beast crashed into a trunk, then regained balance and bolted away into the shadows of the bushes. The girl's eyes still reflected pure fear. She couldn't erase the image of that monster tearing open her lover's chest and devouring his heart. The young man watched the direction the beast had fled, then tucked his revolver back into his waistband and turned to her. "Are you all right?" he asked. The girl was on her knees, sobbing uncontrollably, too shaken to speak. He glanced around cautiously, then crouched beside her. "What were you doing out here alone in this deserted forest?" he asked softly. Between shivers, she managed to say, We came for a picnic, and then, that thing, it attacked us. It tore my friend's heart out." At the memory, her mind went numb. She covered her face with both hands and wept bitterly. "Oh my God, what has happened?" The young man's voice turned gentle. "These creatures have troubled us all for too long. One way or another, we'll find a permanent solution. For now, come with me. I'll take you home, and later you can go wherever you need to." Through her sobs, she nodded weakly. He helped her up, and they walked toward a car parked a short distance away. The dusty vehicle sped down the rough road, stirring clouds of dirt behind them. Trees whispered on both sides, dry leaves snapping under the tires. After a while, a grand but old mansion appeared ahead, a strange, beautiful building with an eerie charm. They stopped the car and went inside. As soon as they entered, a servant shut the heavy door behind them. On a sofa sat an elderly woman whose eyes, instead of showing age and fatigue, gleamed with a sharp intensity. "What happened? Did you finish your work?" she demanded harshly. The young man glanced at the girl before replying. "I wounded the creature. It attacked the girl's companion and killed him." The old woman's face darkened. "How unfortunate, these beasts have become such a nuisance. We've lost too many of our hunts because of them. If this continues, we'll starve to death." The girl froze. Her blood ran cold. Hunt, they had called her lover, the man whose heart had been ripped out, their hunt. She looked at the young man in fear. A devilish smile was spreading across his lips. The girl jumped to her feet as if struck by lightning and ran toward the door, but a man stood there, pointing a gun at her. Laughter echoed through the room. Screaming, she rushed into another room, only to see a man cutting up a human arm, while a half-dismembered body hung from the ceiling. She screamed again and fell to the ground, frantically looking for a way out. But there was none. Terrified, she started running again. "Do you have even a bit of shame? You have a college exam tomorrow, and you're watching horror movies." "Mrs. Ayesha scolded as she slammed Jumana's laptop shut. It was a movie scene playing on Jumana's laptop, which her mother suddenly turned off. "Mama, just one scene was left, please let me finish it, I've already studied," Jumana pleaded, pouting. "Absolutely not. God forbid, such horrible movies. I'll tell your father how you're wasting his hard-earned money." "Mrs. Ayesha warned, clutching the laptop under her arm. Jumana shrank back like a scared kitten. "Mama, please, I won't watch these movies again. Just don't tell Dad," Jumana begged repeatedly. "Stop pretending to be ashamed. Shame doesn't suit you. I'm giving you one last chance. Finish your exams first, then you can watch as many movies as you want." "Mrs. Ayesha pointed her finger at her in warning. Jumana replied with sarcasm. "Mama, sometimes I wish you weren't my mother. I wish I were your mother instead. Then I'd make you pay for every bit of cruelty." "Oh, my cruel, heartless mother." Mrs. Ayesha smiled at her dramatics and said, laughing, "Keep talking nonsense, and keep studying too. I'm leaving now." Her footsteps faded softly as she walked out the door. As soon as her mother left, Jumana angrily picked up her book, her face showing a mix of irritation and frustration. Oh, Mama just ruined the whole movie. Taking my phone wasn't enough, now the laptop too. I wonder what happened to that poor girl in the movie. She sighed, remembering the last scene, then finally turned her attention back to her book. To be continued.